Hey, good evening, Facebook. Sam McEwen here. Hey, I want to talk to you a little bit about risk. All too often we look at risk in the wrong way. We've been told it's better to be safe than sorry. Be careful, all these kind of things. So stop and think about that. Try and explain better safe than sorry to a 5-year-old. Try and explain it to them. Because in all honesty, it really doesn't make sense. Now, if you want to live your life that way, if you want to live your life with never having to make a decision about what it is you want to become or what you want to do or how you want to grow and improve your situation, then okay, better safe than sorry. Okay, but I don't want to live like that. Okay, so where did you hear all this? You heard better safe than sorry growing up. Okay, let's face it. Our parents said that to us. Be careful. They told us to be careful all the time, right? Think about it now. I'm thinking about bicycle riding for one. I still ride a little bit, but here's the thing. As a kid, if I'd have shown up with a helmet and arm pads and wrist pads and knee pads and ankle pads and butt pads and stuff like that, I'm kind of thinking that the beat down from my friends would have been worse than any wreck I ever had. And I had some doozies, okay? And you got back up, you scraped yourself off, and you went on about your business, okay? Did kids get hurt? Yeah, we got hurt, but only the strong survive. I don't know. I don't know how you want to look at that, but how do you define risk? What is risk? Okay, and challenge the wisdom behind it's better to be safe than sorry. Okay, when we decide we want to do something, we have to weigh the potential outcome against a potential downfall. Always remember this. Failure is not final unless it's fatal. Okay? My coach and mentor said that, Paul Martinelli. Failure is not final unless it's fatal. Okay? So are you willing to take a look at that decision that you have to make and weigh the potential outcome against a potential failure? Okay? Is it going to be fatal? So what's the loss? Some money, maybe? A little bit of pride? A little bit of self-esteem? Is it your peers will, you should have known better. You should have known better. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're out there in the business world, you quit listening to you should have known better a long time ago, right? So my question, are you willing to look to the potential future of that risk and see yourself accomplishing it? And if you are, then is it really a risk? So see, if we're aware of the pitfalls, if we're aware of the potential outcome and what it will benefit us, then is it really a risk? Choose awareness, because awareness is a choice. You choose to be aware of the potential for failure or for ultimate success. Think about risk taking in this light. Now, you don't decide today to go climb Mount Everest, right? You don't sit down and say, you know what? I'm going to get on a plane and I'm going to go climb Mount Everest tomorrow. No, you don't. You prepare. And if you're preparing to climb Mount Everest, you have talked to the people who have been there, done that. You've talked to the people who will guide you, who will direct you, who will help you in that. And you are totally prepared for what it is you're going to undertake. Now, there is still a risk because there is at least one thing that is totally out of your control. Mother Nature. Okay? And there are people who have died on the way up, died on the way down, and some of the bodies are still there and will be there forever. What's the ultimate reward? You made it to the top and safely back down again. So if you are aware of the potential benefit to you, and it doesn't matter what that benefit is, whether it's financial, whether it's a pat on the back, whatever it is, and you are willing to do that and you're aware, then is it a risk? I ask you, is it truly a risk? I don't believe so. Okay? So, on the other hand, it is always necessary to take some semblance of a risk in order to grow. Otherwise, you sit in your little old, just like this here, and you put your blinders on and you don't take a chance at all. In order to grow, you have to get outside the comfort zone. Have to get outside the comfort zone. One of the reasons people look at an undertaking as a risk is because they don't believe they're fully resourced to accomplish everything they've set out to do. That's a hallucination. Just go pop some LSD, because you'll have a better hallucination than you will if you are operate from the belief that you lack the resources. Because if you believe you lack the resources, you're never going to be able to reach inside yourself and find them. Most of y'all who follow me at all know of my faith basis. You also know that if God has put the idea in your spirit, if God has touched your heart and your soul to say, do this, Sam, do this, then at that time, he believes you are fully resourced. Believes you are fully resourced. And you are fully resourced. So are you willing to step out of your comfort zone? You cannot perceive it as a risk if, when you begin to undertake it, you're fully aware of what the outcome can be, and you believe that you're fully resourced and you've been able to see the end game in your mind. It's not a risk. I'm telling you, it's not a risk. It's especially not a risk when you make a decision to do something and step out in faith if it is aligned with your purpose. It's not a risk. I'm telling you, it's not a risk, okay? If I live my life and you live your life with the awareness of our connection to God always, then we can look and see that it's not a risk. We can be aware of all that he has placed within us to achieve that which he has planted in our minds. If you perceive it as a risk, if you perceive an action that you're going to take, if you look at a decision that you made as risky, then you're not operating in or living into and from your fulfillment, your perfection, or your possibility. You're also thinking there's not going to be a resource there that's available to you, when in fact, if you have the idea, God has fully resourced. Hey, Mary, how you doing up there in Ohio? Huh? Good. Thank you for the Father's Day wish. I appreciate that. I have a good friend up in Ohio, Mary Brown. I'll tell you what, there have been some times where I have really, really, truly needed a friend who would pray for me with no condemnation, no judging, no whatever. And she has been there, and I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Friends like that are rare and few and far between. So Mary, thank you very much. If you do not believe you are fully resourced to do what God has shown you to do, then you're not, and it is a risk. But trust me, look at some, and I'll get into a little bit here. I don't want to go too deep into it, but look at some of the things in the scriptures in the Bible. Okay, so when God called Moses, so real quick, okay, Moses was raised in Pharaoh's court, raised as Pharaoh's daughter's son, royalty and all this kind of stuff. He killed an Egyptian, buried him, witnessed by a fellow Hebrew. So he ran, figuring he was going to be, thrown to the wolves in the wilderness for 40 years, tending sheep, tending his father-in-law's sheep, yada, yada, yada. Okay. So now God calls him. He sees a bush that is being burned, but not being consumed. Okay. How could this be? And when he approaches it, God tells him, Moses, take off your shoes because the ground you're standing is holy. Well, long story short, God tells Moses to go and set my people free from Egypt. All know the story and everything else. And if you don't, reach out to me and I'll tell you the story. But he argues with God. And here is the voice of God. And we hear this all through the story of Moses, God talking to him. And finally, it gets down to God says to him, Moses, what's in your hand? And Moses said, a rod, his shepherd's crook, his shepherd's staff. And that is what he used through the whole rest of the story about Moses. So Moses was fully resourced. He did not believe that he was. So God gave him Aaron to speak for him. Moses could have done it. He was fully resourced. He didn't believe that he was fully resourced. Made excuses, argued with God. And there's more to the story and everything else. But I want you also to stop and think about this, the resource that God gave to Moses. So they have found some historical data with chariots and stuff like that in the Red Sea. But when Moses parted the Red Sea, when God parted the Red Sea, Moses was just an instrument to that. The scriptures tell us that the Hebrews went through almost a million of them on dry land. Dry land. But if you read further, when Pharaoh and his soldiers went into that area that the Red Sea was parted, they were in the mud. Think about that. Just think about that. God had fully resourced Moses to do the job that he set him out to do. You are fully resourced to do that which God has ordained for you to do. Grab a hold of it, take part, believe it, see it, and do it. If you have any questions on that, I'm available. I'm going to put in the comments here, I am doing a webinar on mind mapping on Thursday, and Thursday the 17th at 11:30. There is a link there if you would like to sign up for that. It's complimentary. There'll be an offer afterwards, but we're going to talk about mind mapping and how to plan some things and how to be in control of your thoughts and your plans and your minds. And it's kind of a fun little webinar, and we'll have some fun after that. And if you're not really sure as to whether or not the webinar is for you, if you're not really sure whether or not any of this stuff that I talk to is for you, and you want to chat about it, there is my calendar link is there in the comments. Click on that, schedule 30-minute consultation. We'll talk, and we'll just go from there. I am an ultimate performance specialist in the areas of personal finance, business finance, communication, and business development. So don't hesitate to reach out. Hey, it's complimentary. What do you got to lose? 30 minutes, and maybe it's a fit, maybe it's not. So let's talk. So understand, if you don't believe you're fully resourced to do what it is God's laid on your heart, then it is a risk. But if you're like me and you believe you're fully resourced and failure is not final unless it's fatal, then you can do this. You can do what it is God has laid on your heart. This has been Sam McEwen coming to you live from Tampa, Florida. Live intentionally and be very, very, very blessed tonight, my friends.